Are you lost in the chaotic whirlwind of day-to-day busyness? Do you yearn for a deeper sense of meaning and purpose in your life? Welcome to Be You, Your Story, Your Purpose, the podcast dedicated to empowering women on their journey of self-discovery and finding their true purpose through their own story. I'm your host, Brenda Simmons. Welcome, my friends, to the podcast. I am so grateful that you are joining me today. Today, I want to talk to you about choosing happiness. I have long felt like being happy is a choice. And I had the opportunity to teach this to some toddlers, some really young children. In Sunday school, I get to teach these young kids. And this last week, I had one 3-year-old and one 5-year-old. And I was able to share with them a little demonstration. And this is how I did it. So for those of you who are just listening to this, imagine a hanger, and I've got this on video. So if you want to see it, you can go over to my YouTube channel and see it. So I've got a hanger, and on each side of the hanger, I have tied to it with some string 2 cups. And on one side is a cup with a frowny face, and on the other side is a cup with a smiley face. And I had a container of different scenarios, and the kids got to pick up the scenario and decide if that scenario made them happy or sad. And then they were able to choose a rock, and then they could put it in the appropriate one. And so I had different things like I got in trouble and had to go to timeout. So obviously that was a negative one. And then on the other side, maybe I got to play with a friend, right? And so that was a positive one. And so they went through these scenarios, and pretty soon they could see that they were tipping one way or the other because I had it balanced on my finger. And so whichever cup was heavier, that was the emotion that they were feeling the strongest. And so they could see in a very, very visual way that their actions made a difference. And more than that, it was their choices made a difference in how they were feeling. And at one point, I had 2 things that I thought were really interesting. Number one, I had one strip of paper where I really wanted them to choose. I wanted these situations to not all be totally obvious, like getting in trouble and playing with a friend are obvious. And on one strip of paper, I play by myself. And I knew that some kids would think, oh, this would be awesome. And then other kids might think, no, that would be like the most horrible thing to happen, if I couldn't play with somebody else. And so the girl who chose, I will play by myself, or I play by myself, she said, hey, I like playing by myself because that means that my brother doesn't take my toys. And so that made her happy to be able to do that. On another occasion, this same little girl picked, I tell myself I'm awesome. That was the scenario. And I asked her, when you tell yourself I'm awesome, how does that make you feel? And she said, I'm not awesome. She's 5 years old, just 5. And I said, well, what do you mean you're not awesome? I think you're fantastic. You're totally awesome. Tell me you're awesome. Say it. And she said, no, I'm not going to say that I'm awesome. And I couldn't get her to say it. I was floored. And this little girl is just the most enthusiastic, energetic, just fun and fun-loving and friendly little girl in the whole world. And I was really surprised that she could not say, I am awesome. She couldn't tell herself that at all. And it really brought home the message that it really is a choice. And I showed them, how the things that you tell yourself are just as important as the things that happen to you, because these are the things that really cement our happiness. And so as I was thinking about this scenario, this experience that I had, I thought, isn't it interesting how it starts at a young age? We have these choices of deciphering and interpreting the experiences that we have. And they can be for the good, for happiness, or they can be for detrimental to us. If we interpret things always as sad and woe is me and things like that, then that is going to change our overall energy, and it makes a really big difference. And so I sat there and I thought, okay, well, is it just happiness that this applies to? Can you apply this to other emotions? And I think absolutely you can. So let's take a few scenarios. So let's take confidence. So let's say you want to be a confident person. Then you have to think and act like a confident person acts. So the way in which you interpret this is going to be individual to you. And there's no right or wrong. It just is. If that's how you interpret confidence, then that is what you need to do. So let's say you interpret confidence as speaking up more. And if you want to be more confident, then that's what you need to do. Let's say you interpret confidence as being willing to share your opinions and your ideas more. And so if that's how you interpret it, those are the things that you need to do. Let's say you tend to be more shy. And so, and you interpret that as being unconfident. And so if you want to feel confident, then you've got to get out of that bubble and go meet new people. Let's say you want to feel confident by going for a goal that you've been scared to do, right? So you've got to put yourself in those situations that mean you're confident as it's interpreted by yourself. It's not going to count if you do something that counts as confidence for somebody else, if that's not the way in which you interpret it. So if you want to feel a certain way, then you've got to do those things that help you to do that as interpreted by yourself. So let's take another one. Let's say you want to be emotionally strong. Okay. Just like being physically strong, this means you've got to constantly be putting little deposits of training into being emotionally strong. But again, it's how you interpret it. So let's say being emotionally strong means that you control your temper. Well, that means you're going to maybe give yourself a timeout to allow yourself to cool off before you fly off the handle. Maybe in being emotionally strong means to you that you understand what you are telling yourself. And so you then journal about it and you are mindful about the things that you tell yourself. So these little deposits of practice over and over and over again will help you then to accomplish that goal. Last one. Let's say you want to be a fun person. And so the big question then is, number one, are you putting yourself in situations that you consider to be fun and playful? Again, it doesn't count if somebody else thinks that they're fun. If you don't, that's not going to help you to be a fun person if that's not how you interpret it. So maybe being fun to you means connecting with other people and talking with them. Maybe being fun to you means that you forget about your worries and you just focus on the present. Maybe it's being able to laugh at yourself. So if that's the way you interpret being a fun person, then those are the things that you need to do. So no matter what emotion it is that you want to feel, it is up to you to interpret that and then do those things that will help you to feel that emotion. And really, the process is the same as developing any kind of physical skill. It takes practice. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to recognize your mistakes. You're going to correct your mistakes, and then you'll practice some more. And you do that process over and over and over again. And that's what helps you to have that skill. And I think it's interesting how you can think of emotions as skills. But if you're not used to feeling those emotions, then it is going to take some time. It is going to take some time to practice, and you're going to make mistakes. And if you just keep at it, then you're going to figure it out. So again, it's like learning any other skill. So let's take typing. When I took a typing class, I went every single day to my typing class and I made a ton of mistakes, but eventually that muscle memory developed. Or baking bread. I love baking bread. I watched my mom for years and years making bread, and then I finally made it myself. I made a million mistakes, but I finally learned the art of how to make bread, and I'm still learning it. Now my repertoire of bread making is expanding into sourdough. And I'm even taking a class on how to do this. And so, again, making a lot of mistakes, but learning how to do it. How about public speaking? You can take classes, you can practice. And I've done this myself, many, many times. And I've even, again, started to attend Toastmasters so that I can develop that skill even more. Learning any kind of skill, whether it's a physical skill, an emotional skill, a mental skill, is going to take that time and that dedication and that willingness to fail in order to learn from your mistakes so that you can improve it and become a master at it. Emotional skills, remember, is the same process. So, how do you figure out what that really means to you? And so what I mean by that is, I keep saying you've got to figure out how you interpret it. Well, I think that you have to take a step backwards even from that first, because there is a universal formula for achieving the emotions that we want. And I focused a lot on the actions, but that's not really where the emotions come from. The typical formula is our thoughts drive the emotions drive the actions, and the actions then give us the results that we want. Now, what's interesting about that formula is sometimes it's really hard to see all of the components. We might just see the action, this is what I'm doing, and not understand what it is I'm doing, right? What's the driving factor of it? Like, let's just take somebody gets really angry and they start yelling, right? Sometimes they don't understand what's really driving that anger. And a lot of times, especially with anger is typically a secondary emotion. And so if it's anger, you have to kind of dive a little bit deeper and go, okay, well, what's driving the anger too? And so just remember this formula. Thoughts drive the emotions create the actions, and the actions then give you the result. Now, what I've just described to you may be counterintuitive with what I was talking about before, because I was talking about, do the actions and that will drive the emotions. But that's a really good thing to do if you're trying to change, right? So that is, and I'll get into that a little bit more, but if you understand what your initial chart is, so like a thought table, right? Then it's really easy to see what you're doing currently, right? So changing your actions is one way to tweak the system. But if you want to have your emotions really last longer, you've got to dive a little bit deeper into those thoughts. And that's where it's going to be very, very individual for everybody, because you might have, let's say you've got an emotion of being sad. Well, that sadness emotion could be caused from anything. And that's going to be, any thought. And that's going to be different from, what another person is experiencing sadness from. And so it's really, really important to dive deep into what are those driving factors in each of those components. Remember, thoughts drive the emotions or create the emotions. The emotions drive your actions, and your actions give you the results. And your results may not be what you necessarily want, but those are the results that are going to happen because of the thoughts, the emotions, and the actions. So experience shows that thoughts do run the show. And if you don't believe me, just watch your thoughts, right? And this is kind of a hard thing to do because you kind of have to be aware of your thoughts without manipulating them, without driving them yourself. And so it takes a little bit of time, a little bit of digging to figure them out, but it is possible. One of the things that I like to do to figure this out is I'll just have like a memo on my phone, like on the memo app. And if I have a thought pop into my head, I'll just write it down. And sometimes the thought is like really alarming. You're like, oh, that was a bad one. Yeah, where did that even come from? And just consider it an opportunity to explore. And if you think about it like that, rather than beating yourself automatically, oh, I can't believe I had that thought, then, and if you approach it instead with, some curiosity, then you're going to be able to it's almost like you're able to accept that you have these bad thoughts that come to you on occasion. And if you can accept it without judging yourself, then you will become more aware of them. Whereas if you're just beating yourself up about it, then your brain is gonna tune away from them because because it's causing you pain, right? And so if it's causing you pain, your brain doesn't want to do that. It's not going to let you see them. And so that it's a really interesting dichotomy there. So what's also interesting is other times you're gonna go, oh, yeah, I totally tell myself this all the time. Right. But again, it is still an opportunity to dive deep into, okay, well, if those are things that I'm telling myself all the time, what are the emotions that it's generating? And then what am I doing or even not doing because of that? And then what is the end result of that? So it's really hard sometimes to see that whole picture. Sometimes, like I said earlier, we may only know one component. We may just have a result and go, why, when I go to this place, why does nobody talk to me? Let's say you're going to a networking group. Why does nobody talk to me when I am in this group of people? And you may not understand the things that you're doing. And so, again, this is an opportunity to figure out what's going on. And again, approach it with curiosity, not judgment. And as you are more aware and you're really paying attention to what's going on, you will be able to fill out this chart and you go, oh, well, nobody's talking to me because I have my arms folded in front of me and I just sit down and I'm not making any eye contact. So those are definite actions. And then if you dive deeper into that, well, I think the feeling that I'm feeling is I'm just nervous. And that's making me close in on myself. And then if you go back further, well, what's the thought that's driving that nervous feeling? Maybe it is, well, I am not a good conversationalist. Maybe that's the thought that you have inside of your brain. And so you can then see, oh, I've got this result and I didn't even realize that all of these things were leading up to it. So you can trick yourself into going, okay, well, I want to, you can decide, I want to be more energetic or I want to talk to one person. Let's say that's just one goal. I want to talk to one person and at my networking event. Okay. And so then you can work your way back again and go, okay, well, if I want to talk to somebody, then what is it? And even though that's an action, a result can be an action. That's okay. A result can also be an emotion. That's fine. So what are the actions then that you need to take in order to be talk to somebody in this group of people? Well, maybe it's I make eye contact with somebody. Okay, if I'm going to feel comfortable making eye contact with somebody, what's that? What does that feel like? And maybe that feeling is confident. I want to feel confident. Okay, well then what's the thought that's going to drive that confident feeling? And maybe it's I'm a great person. But remember, you have to believe it. So make sure that whatever that thought is, it is something that you truly believe and that you truly identify will create the emotions that you want that will give you the actions to give you the results that you want. Once you see what's going on and you've got that clear picture, remember that is the opportunity then to change. And so you can interpret that the way in which you want. You can decide how you want to feel. You can decide the actions that you want to take. You can decide the result that you want to get. You can decide the thought that you want to have. And then you build out that thought table in a way that makes you see that you can be successful. This is where the choice comes in. And this is what choosing happiness or choosing joy or choosing fun or whatever, fill in the blank to whatever emotion that you want to have. This is how it works. It truly is a choice, but there are also some, so things inside the negative thoughts and negative programs inside our brain that may sabotage us. But the longer you work at it, the easier it becomes, just like any other skill. It takes practice and you're going to mess up, and that's okay because that is how you learn. So how do you, like, if thoughts are at the root of everything, how do you truly change your thoughts? How do you understand, and I talked a little bit about how to even how to find out what they are, but then how do you even change them, right? Especially if they're like ingrained in your brain for years and years. Well, there's a lot of different ways that you can do this. And it's, again, this is all individual and it's trial and error. And so I can say a million different methods, and you might say the million and one method worked for you. So here are a few methods that I've used. And so I encourage you to try these out. And then if you find anything else out that might work better, go for that, because what works the best for you is what you should do. So things I've done before is, number one, you've got to be aware of what your thoughts are, right? You've got to gather the data. So just like I said earlier, if one pops in your head, write it down. And it's really good to write them down because they're coming from our subconscious, they're fleeting, right? It's kind of like waking up in the morning and you're like, oh my gosh, I had this dream. It's so detailed. And by the end of the day, you can't remember what it is, right? So it's kind of like that. So write these thoughts down so that you don't lose them, especially if it's something that is kind of shocking to you and you're like, oh, well, that could be a problem, right? Then you're going to take that negative thought and you're going to change it to a double positive. So what I mean by that is you're going to, let's say your negative thought is, I don't like myself when I get angry, right? So I just came up with that, right? So let's say that you get angry a lot and you don't like, I'll even say, I hate myself when I'm angry, right? So that will be our thought, right? So that you take that thought and then you're going to flip it and turn it into a double positive. So you're going to say, I love myself when I am with my family, engage with my family, or whatever you want to do. Or I love myself because I know that I have value, or I love myself because I'm a great runner. Fill in the blank. I love myself because I'm a great negotiator. I love myself because, so you see what I'm doing? I'm taking the flip side of that and then I'm adding to it. Okay. Now, one thing that I have done is I have kind of taken a running list of all of these negative things that I'll say to myself, and then I'll put them all in one on one piece of paper, and then I'll take it out and burn it. And there's something about completely letting them go. It's very symbolic, and it shows your brain like, I don't want these in them anymore. Like, I'm getting them out of my body and I am releasing them to the universe. And then you're going to take those double positives and those then become your affirmations. And if you want to add affirmations, positive affirmations to yourself, absolutely do that. So remember my little girl who could not say, I am awesome. If you're writing something down that you cannot say, like that it's not believable, you got to tone it down a little bit. But it's okay to have a goal to say that thing that you can't say. You got to work your way up to it. And we've talked about that before. So something else that I do is I count my wins. Now, I met this guy the other day and he does this. And instead of just writing them down at the end of the day like I do, he actually has a cowbell sound on his phone. And so every time he has a win, he plays that cowbell sound. And he's like, it brings me so much joy every time I play my cowboy song, or not cowboy song, but the cowbell that, it just makes him so happy that there's another win. And he does this all day long. I think the biggest thing, though, is to expect change. You can do all of these things, but if you don't believe it's going to change anything, it's not going to work. It doesn't happen. Like, if you don't believe it in yourself, that all of these things that you're doing to help you to be happy or to help you to be emotionally strong or to help you be fun or fill in the blank, and if you don't believe your actions and your efforts are going to do anything, your brain will self-sabotage you and you will not see that change happen. So expect the change. It might take some time, and that's okay. Nobody learns to play the piano in one day. Nobody learns to undo trauma in one day. It takes time. So be graceful with yourself and allow yourself the time to make the mistakes, to start over. Every single day is a new day. Every day is a clean slate. You've not experienced tomorrow yet. So you can wake up in the morning and you can start brand new and go, okay, today I'm going to make a little change. And this is how I'm going to do it. Today, my affirmation is yada, yada, yada. And I do different affirmations every day. I've got like some core ones that I do, but I kind of just let my intuition feed my soul on what I need to hear that day. And so I challenge you to really look at your thoughts and look at how you want to feel on a consistent basis and what that would do for you, because I guarantee you it's going to make you feel more positive. It's going to make you feel more hopeful. And it's going to help you to love yourself a little bit more every single day. So I hope you found some value in this. I sure love this concept of being able to choose our emotions and knowing what that formula looks like and how to get there. If you have found some value in this, then please send me a review. I would sure love to know your thoughts and help. It really helps me to share my message a little bit more. And with that, I hope you know that your purpose is in your story. Take care.
Celebrate your dreams, let them take flight, for you are a star, shining bright in every step you